This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning. It is Monday, February 21st, and North Star Marketing Group consultant coaching that we hold every Monday morning. And this morning, we're going to be talking about the Employee Retention Tax Credit. For those of you who just joined, Michael Aguas is held up in Los Angeles. He had an extremely important meeting that he had to attend this morning. And because of that meeting, he's going to finish the third part of opening the doors to CPA offices next Monday on the 28th. He'll be back next Monday. So we're going to talk this morning again about the Employee Retention Tax Credit. So what is the Employee Retention Tax Credit? That's number one here. Some of you already know this. Some of you have already turned in cases, but we need to go over this again because I think there's maybe some of the newer people need to hear this. The Employee Retention Tax Credit, it's called the ERTC or the ERC, provides immediate cash flow relief to eligible employers in the form of a refundable employment tax credit up to $5,000 per employee for 2020 and up to $21,000 per employee for 2021. Okay, so there's confusion out there in the marketplace on the part of business owners because when the law first went into effect in 2020, they could only apply for a PPP loan or the $5,000 per employee ERC. And of course, most of them, almost all of them, the vast majority of them took the PPP loan because it was more money and it was immediate. So then the law changed in December of 2020, and then it changed again in January of 2021, and then it changed again in March of 2021. So business owners and CPAs, the important point is their CPAs they're not filing for the ERC because there's so much confusion in the marketplace because the law has changed so many times, and that's where we come in. That's where we're throwing them a life raft. That's where we can help them. So it was modified and expanded under the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, which was actually signed into law on December 27th of 2020. And it was originally created as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act to encourage employers to keep employees on the payroll, even if they were not working during the covered period due to the effects of the coronavirus. So we can file on their behalf for $5,000 per employee for 2020, and they have to qualify for each quarter. They have to qualify for the second, third, and fourth quarter in 2020, and they have to qualify for the first, second, and third quarter in 2021. There's up to $7,000 per employee available for 2021. If you have questions as we go along, go ahead and put them up there in the chat box. And Bill and Dave, would you please kind of monitor that chat box, and then we will answer questions as we go along here.
Absolutely.
So who qualifies? Businesses that experienced a decline in quarterly gross receipts of 50% in 2020 or 20% in 2021 compared to the same quarters in 2019. So this is why I say they have to qualify quarter by quarter, because there may be one quarter or two quarters where they don't qualify, but they qualify for the other 4 or 5. Or businesses whose operations were fully or partially suspended due to a COVID-19 related government order. This is why we say restaurants are the low-hanging fruit. Every restaurant in the country was affected by the suspension of business due to a COVID-19 related government order. You know, but they are not the only businesses that qualify. Must have between 5 and 500 W-2 employees who are not owners or relatives. Okay, this is really important. If you're working with a small business, a really small business that has like 8 employees, and 2 of them are owners and 2 of them are the owner's kids, they're not going to qualify because they only have 4 who are not owners and not relatives of the owners. They have to have at least 5 and under 500 because the IRS defines any business that has fewer than 500 W-2 employees as a small business. And Dave Nave made a comment here. Yes, or is very important because a lot of CPAs don't understand that. Okay, so what is a refundable tax credit? Okay, refundable tax credits are called refundable because if you qualify for a refundable credit and the amount of the credit is larger than the tax you owe, you'll receive a refund for the difference. For example, if you owe $10,000 in taxes and qualify for a $100,000 refundable credit, you'll receive a $90,000 refund after offsetting or eliminating the $10,000 tax. So how your company can benefit, you know, here's a sample of the tax credits. So company A has 10 employees, so the total maximum ERC is $260,000. Yeah, they again, going back to qualifying quarter by quarter. What if they only qualify for 4 out of the 6 quarters? Well, then you just divide that up and see which quarters they do qualify for, which is what our CPAs that we work with, which that's what our service provider does. You know, they figure out which quarters they do qualify for, and then they figure out what their maximum ERC is. So company B has 20 employees. The total maximum is 520,000. Company C has 50. So the total maximum is 1,300,000. Company D has 100. So the total maximum, again, 2,600,000. And company E has 450 employees. So 11,700,000 is the maximum. The point of this chart is to show you that there's a lot of money on the table for the business owner. And if I were you out there in the field, I would be talking to a couple of business owners every single day about the ERC. You know, if you complete a couple of these a week, you know, there's going to be a lot of money in your pocket as well. So here's the flow chart for 2021. Okay, if they were shut down due to a full or partial suspension of operations due to a government owner, and they answer yes to that, they're eligible to claim the ERC. If they answer no to that, and there's a 20% or more decline in gross receipts, then they can still claim the ERC. But if they answer no and no, then they can't claim it. If they had fewer than 500 full-time employees in 2019, they can claim the credit they paid to all employees during the suspension or during the calendar quarters in which there was a significant decline in gross receipt. Okay, if they have more than 500, they can claim the credit for the wages that they paid who weren't working during the suspension or during the calendar quarters in which there was a significant decline in gross receipts, but we can't go over 500. Okay, so how do you open up the ERTC cases? It's fairly easy. You know, one of the things they're going to say is, oh, my CPA is doing this. Well, then your question is, why haven't they already done it? We can help your CPA. As we have learned in the last two sessions with Michael, most CPAs, many of them out there, are COVID weary. They love handing this off to us. And then, you say to the CPA and the business owner, you really want someone doing this who has done literally millions in recovery and is very experienced. I had a fairly lengthy conversation Friday afternoon with the president of our service provider. They're doing about 30 million a week right now. Last year they did well over they did well over uh, uh, 250 million in recovery for clients. And this year they're on track to do well over 500 million in recovery for clients. So they are very experienced. They are elite CPAs and tax attorneys who have been recovering tax credits for businesses for literally decades. Okay, so then the next question for the business owners, do you want to or do you need to get your CPA involved here? Don't be afraid to ask the CPA, how many ERTC recoveries have you done? Have you read all of the acts, the law changes? And usually there aren't any objections from the business owner, except my CPA is already doing this. And then if you talk to the CPA, you find out that they really aren't. If the recovery gets adjusted in any way, then our fee is also adjusted. And by the way, that has never happened. And how to introduce other services. As we all know, the R&D tax credit and the ERTC tax credit, we call them the Trojan horses. They are the way in the door to business owners. But when you are talking to them, just say, this is phase one. We have other services we provide for you as a business owner and your employees. Let's get through phase one first. Then we can discuss other options to assist you in becoming more profitable. And then I just have a note down there for everybody, remember, no family owners. And then what the opening question, do you know about it? Have you applied for it? Is your CPA applying for you? If you were affected by COVID, you may be eligible. I'll give you a really good example here. I was on the line with Dave Metcalf the week before last, and we were talking to a business owner about potential R&D. And normally this business owner would qualify for R&D. I mean, he's a manufacturing company. But in talking to him, what we found out is that they haven't changed anything in their process or their products for about 5 or 6 years, because they are a 30-year-old family-owned company, and they have basically perfected their process and their product, and they have not changed anything, which would mean that they aren't eligible for R&D. Okay, so then we started talking to him a little bit more, and we said, are you familiar with the ERTC? And he said, well, yeah, he says, I've heard of it. I said, well, let me ask you something. Were you affected by COVID-19? Did you lose money during, or did your revenues go down? Not did you lose money, but did your revenues go down in 2020 and 2021? He says, oh yeah. He said, way down. I said, well, how many employees? I said, I know you have 25 employees now. How many did you retain during that period of time? And he said, about 19. And so I did a quick calculation and I said, well, if you qualify for all 6 quarters, there's $26,000 per employee available to you, which means for your company, if there's a process we have to go through, we have to determine your qualifications quarter by quarter. But if you qualify for all the quarters for all the employees, that's close to $500,000. And there was dead silence at the other end of the line. And then he came back and he said, what's the next step? No, the business owners don't know about this. They've heard of it. They think their CPA is doing it, but the reality is the CPAs aren't, because they have to apply for it. Now, many people have been given the incorrect information and there's still money available. We want to make sure that you aren't leaving money on the table. Dave Nave, you want to share that story about the ad that you saw with incorrect information a few weeks ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I participate in LinkedIn and Alignable, and so I'm always going through and looking for businesses, talking to different ones, and all of a sudden an ad pops up. This ad was from a real estate agent in California who was using a third-party provider and was talking about the ERTC, and the ad had several mistakes in it of things that were not true and or inaccurate. So I proceeded to call to find out who they were using and informed them that their ad had some incorrect information on it, and asked them, did they keep up with this? And the gal said, hey, we just started doing this. The owner knows this guy, and he wanted us to try it out. So the reality of it is there's a lot of misinformation out there and misunderstanding, even on some groups that claim to be experts on employee retention tax credit. So we're trying to educate all of us and you guys to be very current, so you can have the information to help you get into anywhere and talk easily with any CPA.
So the bottom line is there's money available. And, the question to ask the business owner, do you want to find out if you're eligible? There's no cost if there isn't any money coming back. Let's see if you qualify. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. It's in our letter of engagement. And then referring to the 20% fee that we do charge, you want to address that early on. What you're saying to the business owner is that we want this to be a positive process, and you'll get full transparency from me and my team. And we always give our clients a payment plan, 50-50. They pay 50% of that when we have completed the work and we're about to file the documents, and they pay the other 50% when they actually receive their check. Let the client know what to expect, and that we stand behind all of the work we do. We provide audit defense, and we put that in writing. We will defend them in court if it ever becomes necessary, as long as the information they've given us is accurate. And if they say, my CPA says I don't qualify, say, great, can I follow up with your CPA and ask if we can help them? We don't compete with your CPA. We complement them. We work with many CPAs across the country. Bill Enright, do you want to say a couple of words about working with CPAs?
Yeah, absolutely. Working with the CPAs on this program, the ERTC, you get a lot of mixed feelings from them, but most of them don't want to touch it. Like Linda has said in the past, this has changed so many times since its inception that CPAs, a lot of CPAs would rather not touch it. Plus, a lot of CPAs, this is a payroll tax, which is a lot of times done by their payroll companies. So again, it's a great time to be talking to them about these programs. And just so everyone knows, we decided to do this ERTC again because of one simple reason. It's so easy to sell. I know that I don't feel like what I do has anything to do with sales, but it is. We're selling. We're out selling products and services. And this is one of the best programs I have ever seen come across legislation that allowed us to help just about everyone. And it feels like the R&D tax credit, where nobody knows about it, nobody's taking advantage of it, and it isn't that widely talked about. But I promise you, we're talking about this all the time. And if you go in and sit down in any restaurant, ask for the owner, talk to them for a few minutes, like Linda just, did, and kind of showed us how she did that with the manufacturing company, you're going to get results. You're going to get lots and lots of clients. And the best part about it is you're going to get referrals. And this is going to snowball into a huge income opportunity for you. I'll stop there. Go back to you, Linda.
Yeah, one of our consultants right now is working with a restaurant that has 4 locations and approximately 200 employees. And another one of our consultants is working with another restaurant that has 7 locations and a little over 200 employees. You can do the math. I don't even have to explain that one to you. That's going to be a huge recovery for the restaurants if they qualify for all 6 quarters, and most restaurants do. Almost 100% of the restaurants out there qualify for all 6 quarters. They might not qualify for the 3rd quarter in 2021 because things kind of started opening up a little bit last summer and then they shut down again. But even if they qualify for 5, there's a lot of money, millions, literally millions of dollars on the table for those 2 restaurant groups. That's a
Linda,
good question. That's a good question. I kind of saw that up there. Dave, you want to repeat that question?
Yeah, let me repeat that. Good question, Patrick. What does, quote, retained, unquote, employee mean? How does employee turnover affect the calculus? Can you go by average number of employees?
That's
Linda?
a very good question. And the number, yes, the answer is basically is yes, because sometimes a restaurant will have, a particular employee who will be there for 2 quarters, and then that employee leaves for whatever reason, and then another one takes their place, but they still have the same number of employees. Does that make sense? So the answer there is yes.
Linda, I think too, one of the things to be observant, Patrick, in continuing on with your question, is that's one of the reasons that the information we gather is some of the information is done by quarters, payroll, number of employees per quarter, and the folks that we work with know how to gather the right information to find out how much you qualify each quarter. Because remember, this is quarterly. They may qualify for 200,000 one quarter, turn around the next quarter, qualify for 300,000. So it's very important that once they agree to let us look to see how they qualify to get the right information. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Dave. So again, up to 26,000 per employee is available. And talking to the business owner, your company may be eligible to receive up to 26,000 per employee via the employee retention tax credit, even if you had a PPP loan in 2020. And the way that the regulation's written, qualifying is a slam dunk for restaurants. It's like I said, almost 100% of every restaurant out there, as long as they are still open, they're going to qualify. We just helped the owner of a small Oklahoma restaurant with just 2 locations claim 303,000, a little bit over 303,000 in refundable tax credits for 2020 and 2021, and he's already received a couple of those checks. That amount is actually larger than his PPP loan. And then your next question, what's the next question you ask the business owner? May I make an appointment with one of our experts who will spend some time with you to determine your company's eligibility? What you are selling, and I don't even like to use the word selling because we're really not selling anything. We're asking the client questions to find out what they need, and then we're giving it to them. But if you go back to saying, okay, what are we selling? What you're selling for the ERC is an appointment with Bill Enright. You know, you set the appointment with Bill on his calendar. If Bill's not available, then you set it with me on my calendar. One of the two of us is going to be available when the business owner has time to talk, and we're going to do everything that we can to try and make it. Now, you know, we don't work weekends, and our normal business hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. But if the business owner, and we had a CPA we had to talk to after hours the week before last, a CPA who's selling their practice. And he didn't want to be talking during business hours. Tax season has already started, and he didn't want to be talking in front of his employees quite yet about selling his firm. So he needed to make the appointment at 5:30. And you know, he's Central Time, so that was, you know, 6:30 Bill Enright's time, and Bill made the accommodation, and we had that conversation with the CPA. I'm Pacific Time, so it was fine with me because it was still, you know, 5:30 Central Time is only 3:30 my time. But you know, we do make accommodations if the if the business owner, you know, absolutely can't find time to meet with us during normal business hours. But that's an exception and not a rule. Dave, there was another question I saw pop up there. Do you want to read that one?
Well, actually, it was a statement, and oh, okay. I'm sorry. I do see that question. My apologies, Patrick. Thank you. Good question. Can you expand on the definition of partial shutdown? Could that be having to occupy alternate tables?
Yes, absolutely. Partial shutdown. Many restaurants pivoted and went to takeout only. I know that happened here in my town. Most of the restaurants stayed open with limited hours for takeout only. You know, if they were open for breakfast and lunch previously, they might have gone to just lunch and just takeout. You know, because for quite a while there, in my state anyway, no one was allowed inside a restaurant under any circumstances to sit down and have a meal. You know, they had to have, you know, they had to have takeout or delivery. So they were still open, but nobody was in the restaurant. That would qualify as a partial shutdown. Then we went to, okay, they could go inside, but they had to be at 50% capacity. Again, that qualifies for a partial shutdown. Does that answer your question, Patrick?
Yeah, hope that does. And just as an example to follow on yours, Linda, in Illinois, we had a progressive shutdown. Just like you were saying, the first thing they did was shut everyone down. Then they allowed for drive-through. Then they allowed for pickup, and then they allowed for if you had an outdoor area that people could eat. So even though they began to be able to have clients come into the restaurant, for example, it was still limited, therefore equal to a partial shutdown, which then allowed them to continue to qualify for those quarters. Linda, I have a suggestion and a thought for everyone. While Bill's appointment calendar page is up there, one of the things that I've done is on my iPad, I went ahead and bookmarked yours and Bill's calendar pages so that when I'm with a business owner, right then and there, whether I'm on the phone or in their office, I can go ahead and bring your calendar up and schedule that with them immediately and not wait on that. So just a thought for everybody, bookmark those calendar pages, those on your iPad or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Okay, so the initial document checklist. Okay, the first thing that you do when you are on the line with Bill Enright or with myself, we do the completed application. What you all have is a one-page client information form that you fill out on behalf of the client, and you send it into Bill or send it into me, whoever's going to do that next appointment, and with that form so that we know a little bit about the business. Then we're going to complete the application. We're going to, after that initial conversation with the business owner, we're going to complete that application. And then we're going to gather, either Bill or myself will gather these documents. And what we're going to need is the 2019 and 2020 and the 2021 P&L statements for all quarters. And then we need the quarter 1 through 4 2019 IRS Form 941, and then the 2020, and then same thing, quarter 1 through 4, and then we only need quarter 1 through 3 of the 2021 Form 941s. So we also need the 2020 group health insurance statement by month and the 2021 group health insurance statement by month, if they have a group policy. And then we need the PPP loan records for the first and or the second draw. And we need the PPP loan forgiveness letter, if they have one, and most businesses do by now. And then we need detailed payroll records by quarter for 2020 and 2021, which reflects the payroll detail per employee. Okay, so you don't need to worry about this. We are going to gather those documents, and we're going to send the client a secure Dropbox link to upload those documents. We're also going to, once we have completed the application, we're going to send it to them for signature via a secure Dropbox link. And the reason that we use a secure Dropbox link is that there's confidential information on these forms that we don't want to have falling into the wrong hands, and email is not secure. So we don't want to be emailing these documents back and forth. The other reason is that our service provider wants everything provided to them via a secure Dropbox link. So what you're going to have at your end, if you are working with the client to gather these documents, most of the time either Bill or I will be doing it, but if you need some assistance, there's going to be a secure Dropbox link for each client. So client A, Dave Nave, client B, Dave Nave, client C, Dave Nave, client D, David Colors, client, in other words, right down the line for each client, it'll be a separate Dropbox link, because we want to keep the documents in a very organized manner for the sake of our service provider, so that when we share that Dropbox link with them and they then access all of those documents, they're accessing all the documents for one company. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, Linda, this might be a good time to just let everyone know that we do provide some of these materials for the consultants so they can have it, so they can learn it, memorize what's needed. And when those questions come up, whether it's the business owner or the CPA, they have that information in front of them. So for our paid consultants, this is information that you will have readily available, so you won't even have to guess at it at some point.
Yes, and once this recording is ready, it's going to be on a password protected page on our website, so that if you need to go back and review it, you can.
Linda, Patrick Marshall has another question here, and good timing on your screen.
Yeah, okay.
Is there a state-by-state listing of government-mandated shutdowns, or a website we can find that out for a particular state? I think some restaurants in the South may have implemented measures on their own, but not by state or federal mandate.
Very good question, Patrick. In Washington State, I can only answer that for my state. Okay, Washington State has a government website where those shutdown dates are listed. I believe that most states have the same information somewhere on the state government website. But as far as a listing state by state, no. I've never seen one. If anyone finds one out there, please let us know, because that would be, that would be excellent to know and to have.
Linda, I think Bill Enright has helped some CPAs who couldn't even find the information get websites to go to, but it is state by state, southcarolina.gov, illinois.gov. In our case, I think we went to Secretary of State, illinois.gov. So it takes a little bit of research, but you can call Bill Enright, and I believe he can help you get there.
And many business owners are going to know, they're going to know, I mean, if you say, when did you have to first shut down because it was mandated, they're going to say, oh, I had to shut down March 4th, 2020. Bing. I mean, they're going to, they know the exact date. And, we don't even have to have the day, just the date, just the month, and they, most of them know that it was March 2020 that the order went out, pretty much across the country to shut businesses down. But it did vary from state to state. So, you may have to do some research on your state government website. So what other questions can we answer for you?
Feel free to go ahead and speak up, guys. I'm not a good quick typist, so I don't usually use chat. I just go ahead and ask, and you can too.
So if we just use that last slide that you had there with all the list of the documents that you're going to obtain, and we just say, here's a list of documents that you will be asked for. So we could kind of use that as a checklist. We could give them that they can start preparing or gathering those documents or talking to their CPA. We can go ahead and do that.
Absolutely. In fact, we have an actual document checklist PDF that we can send out to you so that you have that PDF, and you're going to have it to take with you, or you'll have it, on your computer, on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever device it is that you take with us. And if they say, okay, what documents am I going to need? You can share that list with them. Very good question.
There's a good question on there Bill Enright could take if he would, in the chat room.
You want to read the question out, Dave? Well,
Yeah.
Bill is.
Yeah, sorry about that. Do local government mandated shutdowns count?
Yes, but I mean, I don't know how local you're going, but yeah, if it was shut down, because the federal government is actually going and saying that this is, state by state. So they're not saying that the federal government shut anybody down, but if they were shut down by a government agency, like here in Michigan, our governor shut everything down. It was one of those things where you went and flipped the full house breaker off, and then just went one by one and turned them back on to see, where your problem was. That was kind of like what our governor did, was shut everything down, and then just went back and decided what was essential or what we could handle or what should be turned back on. So yeah, it does count.
I saw another question up there. John had a question. Dave, do you want to read that question off?
Yeah, it's actually a two-part question. The first part is, if we make an introduction to the program, can the company go to their agents to do the deal? And then he asks CPAs also.
I'm not quite sure what that question is. You want to expand on that a little bit, John?
Yeah, John, help us out here. I'm not quite sure I understand the question either, unless you're asking if we introduce the program to a business owner, could that business owner go to their CPAs to have this done? And I'm not sure what you mean by to their agents to do the deal. Yeah, okay. So the answer is yes, they can. But the question is, why haven't their CPAs or whoever their agents may be have already done the deal for them? The CPAs, again, they're so busy, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed, and they don't have enough personnel. They don't know the programs nor specialize in them. And I'm not sure who their agents might be that would do the deal. There are other people out there that know about this, but if you're the first one to step up and help them out, they should do that with you. And that's a great time to emphasize this is of no charge to that business owner until such time as we know that they qualify and have certain parameters that we would tell them as to how much they would qualify for. Monica has a statement here. I had that situation, the client's CPA told the client not to do it. So Linda, would you maybe address that while I'm reading the next questions that have come in? And thank you, John, I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yes. When the CPA tells the client not to do it, there's not a lot we can do at our end except ask why. I mean, why would a CPA tell a client not to apply for money that they have coming? And in that particular case, Monica, I don't know how many employees, it was ego. Okay. The CPA was apparently upset or thought we were trying to take their client. I would suggest that if you possibly can, you may not be able to, but if you possibly can, try to get that CPA on the line with Bill Enright or with me so that we can assure the CPA that we're not trying to take their client. We're trying to help their client, and we can actually help them help other clients. We work with CPAs who are experts in this field. This is all they do. We don't do tax returns. We don't try to take their client. We're trying to work with them in order to help their client. Now, you may not be able to. I know that Dave Nave, one of your group there in Illinois, was concerned about a CPA office that wouldn't return calls. And my answer to that is, okay, there's 20 in the state of Illinois. There are 26,000 CPAs. So forget that one and go after the other 25,999 that haven't said no yet. Anyway, you're going to get some no's out there, and that's frustrating. And particularly when you know that you can help the client, it's even more frustrating. I had that happen with a personal client. I don't do a lot of personal business any longer, but I do a case from time to time. I was working with a small construction company in Colorado, in the Denver area, for R&D. And we were at the point where we had their letter of determination. We were going to be able to get back about $125,000 for that company. That's a lot of money for a small company. And their CPA, for some reason, said, "Oh, you shouldn't do this. It's going to trigger an audit." And I tried to tell them that we've never had an audit, first of all, number one, due to the work that we have done. There have been audits from time to time due to the work that the CPA has done, but there's never been one due to the work that we have done. But if there ever is, we put it in writing that we provide an audit defense. But I was not able to convince her. She'd worked with her CPA, for 15 years. She didn't know me personally. We'd been working over the phone and over Zoom. So she didn't, I didn't have that 15-year relationship with her, and I lost the case. And that's really frustrating because, as we all know, there's a certain amount of work on our part that goes into working with that client and making sure that all the appropriate documents are uploaded and making sure that everything is, moving along smoothly at the other end. And then to get down to the point of actually having that letter of determination, knowing that we were going to get money back for them, and having the CPAs quash the deal, that's really frustrating. But unfortunately, it does happen from time to time. And the only thing you can do, excuse me, the only thing that you can do is say next.
That's a great point, Linda, and a great reality. One of the things that I try to early on in the conversation with the business owner is say, listen, I want to reassure you, we work with your CPA, not against your CPA. We work with them on your behalf because you're the most important factor here in this scenario is you, the business owner. So we work with your CPA, and we hope they will work with our CPAs as well. So from that standpoint, tell them that right up front. We're not here to take their place. We're not here to tell them what to do. We're here to work with them on your behalf, and our work by our CPAs is warranted, guaranteed, defended by them. It's just a win-win-win situation for you if you can get your CPA to work with us. So don't be afraid to say that. Patrick Marshall has a clarification. Would a city or county mandated shutdown that was more stringent than the state mandates count? I'm going to tell you, I really believe the answer is yes, but Bill, you might have some additional clarification on that.
Yes, it says any governmental entity, so yes, it counts. It doesn't have to be federal government, like I said before. So yes, it counts.
In some places it's county by county. I know for a while there, our county was having, was going straight up as far as COVID cases were concerned, and the shutdown order in our county was more stringent than it was in other parts of the state. So the county government can override, at least in some states, state government. Again, it depends on what state you're in and what county you're in, but there are sometimes county orders out there that supersede the state orders. So good question.
Yeah. One of the things that I've used with some clients is that, there's only one way to find out. And if it doesn't cost you anything to get to the point where we know that you do, why wouldn't you do this? And remember, the CPA works for you. You're paying them. They're not paying you. You're paying them. So you do have the right to insist that they release the information that our CPAs and group need to make this determination. It's not going to cost you up to the point of signing that letter of engagement after we determine you're qualified, and it doesn't take much time on the part of your CPA. In fact, I've had clients that they have all the information and didn't even have to go to their CPAs to get it.
And then John had a question. Can you read that question, Dave?
Yeah, let me scroll up here a little bit. Are you going to provide us with the PowerPoint slides? They're great slides and make a great presentation, maybe tweaked a little to focus on the company. That's
no. No, the answer to that is no. This is for agent training only. And we do have PDF brochures that you can use with clients, and we will make those available to you.
And John, something better than that PowerPoint is we have Bill and Linda that you can get on the line or on a Zoom meeting to talk directly with the clients or the CPA, because one of the things we're always saying is what you're really doing is meeting with that client, trying to get them to come to a Zoom meeting with Bill or Linda. They can explain it again, answer any questions. You'll be on the Zoom call with them. And that's one of the greatest ways to get that business owner to make a commitment and help understand how important this is to him. There's a time frame here on the Employee Retention Tax Credit program that we need to be aware of. Once that time frame is over, no one's going to be able to apply for it. So that's one of the reasons today we're giving all this information to everyone and letting you know about the urgency to go see business clients and get that Zoom appointment or phone appointment with Bill or Linda. Patrick has another question or comment. Can you give examples of other companies other than restaurants that would be good candidates for the Employee Retention Tax Credit?
Okay, any company in your area that was shut down, it's there's no specific examples, but many companies. Okay, so retail stores, most retail stores in our area were shut down totally. Some of them opened up a little bit, but most of them were totally shut down. And they may have retained employees, even though the employees were not working. Remember going back to that slide that said, even if the employees were not working, but they were retained on payroll. So they may have retained some of their key employees. That happened all over in our state. And then, some retail establishments that were considered essential, obviously grocery stores stayed open. For some reason, the stores that had home repair, like Home Depot and Lowe's, they stayed open, but many of the other smaller ones were shut down totally. And because of that shutdown, there were other related companies that shut down. And so, you got to go down the list of companies because there are numerous companies out there, like auto dealerships. Okay, was anybody going in and buying cars? They may have remained partially open, or they may have been totally shut down. But in most cases, they did retain some employees because most auto dealerships have a service component where people bring in their cars for repair or service that stayed open. So it's kind of on a business by business basis, and it's not a particular category. But if you just look around you, I'll bet you that within 10 miles of where your office is, you can find 40 or 50 businesses that were partially or completely shut down. It's not hard. And thank you for bringing that point up, Dave, about the time frame. When Congress finally made the last adjustment to the ERTC and eliminated the fourth quarter of 2021, so we just have the first 3 quarters of 2021, they also put a statute of limitations in there of 3 years. Okay, so everybody's thinking, well, we have 3 years to go back and apply for this money. Well, no, you don't. The first year is already gone. 2020 is already gone. So you have 2021, 2022, 2023. However, the Congress has set aside a certain amount of money, and don't ask me what that is. I don't know. It's probably out there somewhere. I could find the answer. But they have set aside a certain amount of money for the ERC. When that money is gone, it's gone. So there is some real urgency for your clients right now to be applying for the ERTC. And it's a perfect door opener to clients that you don't already have. Again, we call it the Trojan horse. It's the perfect way in the door without them realizing that you even have any other services available. And that's why at some point in the conversation, when you're, chatting with the client, this is phase 1. We'd like to put money back in your pocket first. So let's see what we're eligible to get back for you. But we do have other services that are also designed to make you more profitable. You know, for just as an example, I said, you know, David Colors is working with a restaurant group with about 200 employees. Okay, one of the things that we're going to suggest that they do once we get the ERTC out of the way and we put that money back in their pocket, phase 2 for that particular employer, because they have more than 100 employees, if they have a benefit plan for their employees, we're going to take a look at that, because we have a service provider who reviews benefit plans, you know, medical plans on behalf of employers, but they have to have 100 or more employees in order to make it work. They don't take companies smaller than that. They may take, depending on a case-by-case basis, they may take one with 80 or 90, but in most cases, they're working with 100 or more. Okay, so if you run into a company out there with 100 or more employees, we have a service that will review their plan. And typically, they can negotiate with the same carrier. They don't change carriers. They don't change the insurance agent, nothing like that. But they can negotiate with the same carrier a better deal for the employer. And what their typical savings is somewhere between $75 and $100 a month per employee. Again, you can do the math on that. And again, there's no fee, there's no charge to the employer unless we do actually save them money. You know, almost everything that we do is on a contingency basis. And if we don't save them money, they don't owe us a penny.
You know, Linda, this is probably a really good time to say what Bill typed in there. Everyone, think outside the box. Don't assume that they don't. Assume that they might. Just for example, a wineries that had rooms and tables set up so people could come in and test their wines, they couldn't do those things, so they were shut down. So they're probably a good candidate for employee retention tax credit. Then once you get their attention on that, again, Linda using phase 1, phase 2 could be they're a good candidate for research and development credit, which is something we'll be talking about in the future. So you'll know more about that. But don't assume. If you have any question whatsoever, feel free to call Bill Enright or Linda to clarify. How do you approach that? Are they a good candidate?
And that's a very good example. You know, wineries. I mean, it's where I used to live out in Eastern Washington. Used to be good. It used to be huge wheat country. Now it's huge winery company. When I lived out there, there were 2 wineries. Now there's over 200. And they were all shut down. You know, the tasting rooms, the wineries had to keep in operation because they still had to harvest their grapes. They still had to make their wine. So they still retained employees, but their tasting rooms were shut down.
We're coming up on the hour, so I just wanted to make us all aware of that. If you have any last questions, please ask them or put them in the chat box. Then I'm going to give it to Linda, of course, then to close out.
All right, if there isn't anything else, I'd like to thank you all for attending this morning. Like I said, once the recording is finished, this will be put on a password protected page on our website. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you, Patrick. Patrick said excellent training. Saw that one. And I'm going to turn off the recording.